Thank you for stopping by Luxuriously Poor, and I hope you find today's video helpful. And I would like to say that if you need wisdom on what to do for now or the future, this book is extremely helpful. Well, I'm showing you my kitchen today, and I want to say that I haven't always had it this nice. There was a time in my life that I lived worse than... I've never known anybody live as bad as I did. Not even now. That's why I don't really take a lot of people's advice. Because I lived in a place where there was no running water, no restroom inside, no shower. There was no refrigerator, no electricity. And I had to pay rent on that place, and I'll tell you what, at nighttime, I never knew that cockroaches like that existed. They sounded like helicopters landing in war at night. And you would be scared to death. I slept with the covers over my head. That's how I lived for quite some time because it's all I could afford. And I wanted out of that kind of life and that kind of poverty. And I had to claw my way out of it and make a lot of sacrifices. And today I'm going to discuss with you some of the things that I did by the grace of God to get where I am. Well, it's a new year and money is on everybody's mind and how they can save more money from groceries to clothes and everything out there. And I'm going to say that one of the biggest problems is that we want to live way above our means because we want everything to look like it's better or as good as what everybody else has. We live on credit cards instead of just paying cash for things. I have family members that have had 4 sets of brand new cabinets put into their kitchen while I'm still living with the same ones that I put in my kitchen 20 years ago. And that was nothing but wood that was stained. I put new cabinets because they were very expensive and I couldn't afford it. But I could afford the wood because back then you could get a big, huge, long plank of wood for $2.39. But you couldn't cabinets. And I did the same thing for my countertop. I used wood because Formica was just too expensive. Now, other people didn't want to do that with their kitchen. Oh my goodness, you put shelves like that? Yeah, I lived with my means. In other words, I do not live to impress. It's not my life. I live at my means and what I can afford. And this was what I could afford. And I've had people actually come in my home and say, oh my gosh, that's gorgeous. I never would have thought of doing that. Now, I'm getting ready to paint because I usually do paint once a year. And I'm going to change the brackets. I want wood brackets, so I'm going to have someone make the wood brackets for me and put wood brackets instead. But I'm going to keep this same style. I don't get tired of it. I think it's really great. Now, I want you to understand, this is how I live. I never have bought anything that I can ever recall new. Never had a new couch, never had a new stove, never had a new refrigerator. I've never had a new chair, a new kitchen table, dressers. I've never had anything new. It's always either something someone has given me, something I saw that was being tossed out, brought it home, refinished it, redid it myself. This was made, that's the TV, where the TV goes. Now, I want you to understand, my very first stove that I had was a camp stove. I could not afford a stove. My very first refrigerator was a cooler, an ice chest, because I could not afford a refrigerator. I was not going to go and buy something on credit and pay 1.5 times its value because that was illogical in my mind to pay 1.5 times its value just because you were willing to give it to me on credit. No, thank you. I pass on that one. And I also keep everything simple. No, I ain't looking for water to come out of the refrigerator and for it to tell me when I'm low on something. I got a brain, I can think for myself. And I don't need one that can hold the entire grocery store either. Okay? It's simple. When this one goes out, I want to go smaller. I'm going to get something that doesn't even have a freezer. What for? I have a freezer. I don't need another one. I'm going to go smaller than this. See, I learned a long time ago how to cook and only cook with hardly any leftovers because I didn't have a refrigerator. I lived off of a little camp stove that I put on a wooden table, and I would cook on that. And I also would bring home one little piece of meat or something just for the day, or maybe for 2 days, and that would be it. And that's it. I took, if there was any piece of meat left over, that was what I took for my lunch the next day. Now this kitchen table, it's been made. I bought wood a little at a time, and voila, there's a kitchen table. Now, someone had said to me when they first saw it, this table is over 20-something years old. They said that there was an unfinished furniture store that had a table and chairs identical to this one, and they wanted close to $900 for it. She thought that's where I got it from, and I said, where would I get $900? She said, well, I was going to ask you the same thing, because she said, I didn't think you had that kind of money, and I said, I don't. But I will tell you something that I have always done. A friend taught me this, and it has always been a lifesaver to me. A bed. You need a bed, right? Well, I learned about 7-8 years ago, because I bought a bed cash, okay? And I learned that, because a friend had taught me this many years ago, that you need to put money aside for when major appliances go bad. Whatever you can afford. See, I learned I could afford to smoke, but I quit smoking so that I could buy the property where I live now. I put that money aside, and I bought the land, and I let the land sit for a lot of years before I ever moved on it. Okay, it took me quite a bit of time. The stove. The very first stove I said, like I told you, it was a camping stove. Then I got one and paid $100, fell in love with it. It broke down. Nobody could fix it. They said, no, this thing is an antique. They don't make parts for it. And I couldn't find anybody to fix it. I believe if I lived in a different town and a different state, I could have found somebody, but I couldn't. So a dear friend of mine, she gave me this stove. I didn't have to buy it, not even a used one, and I've had it ever since. And I don't know what I'll go with. If something happens to this one, I will probably either fix it or look around for another used stove. But that's where you have to put a little money away in an envelope for major purchases. Buy your purchases on Christmas, Memorial Day, holidays, because they usually will give you a discount. There'll be something that's discounted. I had mattresses. I needed a new set this year. And guess what? I found it in Costco on sale. But see, can't pay cash if you're not putting money away. And you don't have to have the prettiest and the best of everything. You deserve what you can afford to pay cash for, and nothing more. Well, God bless, and I hope you enjoyed this, and thanks for staying to the end.